Alright, so I'm back for more over here. Right now I removed all the little blocks that are inside here, removed all the set screws that lock the blocks in place to lock the strings, cleaned out the inside of these, and I gotta say that, this is the crap that was inside of here. So yeah, that gets dirty inside of your trem. And what I have here is a mixture of rubbing alcohol and window cleaner. Yes, I said window cleaner, and it does clean, it does work. So see that there's a new knob on here. These guys I picked up, pretty cool, got delivered yesterday. You get the package open. And all the way from Japan, not China, Japan. So what these are, Cosmo black knobs, and they have an added ring to them. You see the numbers on them. Now these numbers glow in the dark. Set screwed to lock them in place, not a big deal, and they do fit the short shafts. So in this package here, wrapped in my rubber band, is a little tiny flashlight. Does it have batteries in it? Oh no, I gotta get batteries for it. What kind of batteries does it take? Oh no, it's got batteries. Had a piece of paper inside there to stop the batteries from working. That's cool. Little watch batteries inside of here. So it's a blue LED. What that blue LED does is it ignites the numbers, and the numbers glow. So you can kind of see that a little bit. They weren't glowing before, and now they're kind of a little bit illuminated, not too much, but where you can kind of see the glow of them now. Kind of cool, you know. I just got them so I can see the, settings of what the guitar is set to as far as volume control and tone, and not a big deal. Very easy to install. You just put them on, find out where you want your, usually I go by the angle this way, and then lock them in place. Make sure you leave enough height to where it's not rubbing on the body, and just screw them down. Perfect. So what I want to do now is start, finish cleaning up the set screws and the blocks that go inside of here. And like I said, they do get dirty on the inside of here. Not much I could do with the trem over here as far as some of the discoloration and the plating. The other trem that I have that is basically the same things, the saddles are different, come to find out. Even the blocks are different. The blocks are a little bit more chunkier. So I can't use those to put on here. They sit a little bit on an angle, and there's a rubber pad on the mounting plate on the setup that I ended up buying. So can't use too many of those parts for this. So what I want to do is just let these guys soak pretty good, clean them up with the brush, and get them back installed, get some strings on here, and start doing the setup. That'll be next. Alright, welcome back. As you can see, I got a little bit of a jump start. I'm putting a couple of strings on here. So basically what I got going on is, actually I got a lot of work to do here. The fretboard has been leveled, crowned, polished. Replaced the two pickup rings. Got a couple of new knobs on here. Rebuilt, cleaned the trem. Ended up getting the plastic piece where the trem stabilizer sits in replaced. Cleaned up the body, and now I'm getting into basically stringing her up, getting her ready for, to make a little bit of noise or something like that. One of the things you want to do is make sure that you have your fine tuner pegs about half and half as far as your so you have some fine tuning over here. You get them about half and half before you tune it up at the headstock, and that way you have some fine tuning up and down back here. So I got a jump start on doing the stringing. Not too much of a big deal as far as stringing, and actually stringing up a guitar is kind of boring. But so we'll go into a little bit of a story about how I got into this stuff. Story time with Eric C. So back in high school, I was a senior, and I noticed that they opened up a music store, or was starting to open up a music store. They were putting a sign up and it said Murphy's Music. And I walked in one day, kind of shot the shit with the owner a little bit, found out that the owner, Rick Sims, lived right around the corner on the next block from me. So after school, the bus would stop right there in front of the parking lot for the store. I was about maybe 18, 19 at the time, something like that. Now, when I do stringing up, I always take my finger, put it on top of the 12th fret, and basically give about that much string, about 4 inches or so, and tighten it up from there. That way, I have plenty of play in the, you know, if I want to change tuning and stuff. But anyways, started hanging out over there after school, and became kind of like the fly on the wall, if you'd say, at the music store. And one day it got to be really crowded over there, and they actually needed a hand, an extra hand. So I ended up kind of like just helping them out. It wasn't getting paid. It wasn't you know, wasn't really doing anything as far as being on the payroll or whatever for the music store. But I kind of liked hanging out over there after school. So what I ended up doing is giving them a hand. And a little bit later on, it started becoming where, like, I kind of became the gopher boy, or whatever you want to call it, at the store. So if they needed something, I'd run and go get it for them. And there was a guy by the name of Ed. I can't remember what his name is, but he was the guitar tech. And there's more about him later on in the story, which is kind of sad. But anyways, Ed was a heavy guy. He was a big guy. And Rick and Ed both liked donuts. They liked them a lot. Right across the street where the music store is now, the Good Time Music Store, they used to be a Mexican donut shop, and they had some pretty good donuts and stuff over there, cakes and shit. So what I ended up doing is I ended up running across the street, picking up Ed and Rick some donuts and shit, and bringing it back to the store. After that, I started cleaning guitars, vacuuming the floors, you know, low man on the totem pole, doing all the odds and ends work that needed to be done around the store to help them out. And a little bit later on, they started talking about, you know, keeping me around. So I ended up talking with Rick, and Ed was standing there too. And at the time, Ed was starting to show me a little bit of some of the tech stuff. Putting new strings on guitars, restringing them, adjusting truss rod, just a few things that to get him a little bit of a jump start on what he needed to do around the store. There was a lot of people who had guitars and shit that was in the neighborhood that I didn't even know about. A lot of guitar players. So they had a guy named Woody that would come in over there, and he was basically the guitar teacher. And they set it up with him that I would get lessons from him once a week, and in return, basically work around the store during the week. So it was after school till about, what was it? I'm going to say like close to like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Well, being over there the way I was and stuff kind of screwed up my school because I was a senior and homework and shit became non-existent for me when I was working at the music store. So that kind of screwed me up a little bit. And my grades started going down, so it was getting bad. If I didn't stop going to the music store, I was told basically learn how to play guitar pretty quick or graduate high school. So I ended up kind of like backing off from the music store a little bit and started doing homework and trying to get myself caught up at school before I ended up failing and not graduating on time. And that's kind of what I did. And Rick and Ed understood. They were cool about it. I had a talk with them about it, and they were cool. There was no problems with that. They understood. You know, Rick's got 2 boys and a daughter, and you know, he'd rather see them do well in school than to be putzing around with something that you know, graduate, get done, get out of school, get your education, get your diploma, all that fun stuff. So that's what I ended up doing is I ended up stopped hanging around the music store, went over there on the weekends a little bit, wasn't really working over there anymore, but just hanging out and shooting the shit. Stopped my guitar lessons, but I did learn at the time that I was there, I did learn a lot about guitar setup. I didn't really do any fret leveling over there, but I've seen it done. And things were, like I said, this was back in the early 90s. Things were done a little bit different than what they are compared to they are now. You know, everybody had their own way of doing things, and you know, Ed was a very good tech, excellent guitar player. So was Rick. Rick was a great guitar player, and you know, he taught me basically how to do work on the guitars and stuff. So when I got back into this, I needed a little bit of a jump start, and I started watching everybody's videos on how to do this shit. And it kind of gave me a little bit of a reminder of some things. And then plus I learned a lot off of everybody's videos as well of some things that I didn't know. But then I find out after high school, you know, life went on. And basically right out of high school, I got a job at a factory and basically started working. And I met my first wife and kind of forgot about the guitar thing. And back in 97 or so, somewhere around then, I ended up coming back to Illinois. I ended up divorcing, leaving my wife, and now she became my ex-wife, and came back to Illinois. And I noticed that the music store was across the street, and it said Good Time Music, but it was a different sign than what it is now. And from what I was told when I walked into the store, I found out that Rick passed away. And then after Rick passed away, I guess the music store ended up moving across the street where the old Mexican donut shop was. At that time, I think it still was called Murphy's Music. I wasn't around then. Ed and Rick ended up having that store still. Then I ended up finding out that Rick passed away, and Ed and another guy went in on that store, and it became Dr. Eddie's Good Time Music. And then I find out that Ed passed away. Now it's just Good Time Music. And there's another guy, I think his name is Rick, over there. I keep on wanting to call him Roy for some reason, but I think his name is Rick. He took it over, and you know, still has the store there today. So when I ended up coming back, I didn't go over there right away, but I ended up talking with the new owner of the place, and that's when I found out that Rick passed away. And that's when I found out that Ed passed away too. And Ed was a damn good guy. Rick was a great guy. Rick did a lot with his church. He had a lot of functions that he would talk about that he was doing with his church, as far as like band guitar playing, or you know, some type of music for the church and stuff. And he was a good guy. He was a real good guy. Ed, I didn't know too much about him, exception of that he was a guitar tech. He played guitar, and he did a lot of repairs on the side for other people, not including the store. But he also did, you know, took on his own work and shit. And I think he had another shop someplace else. I'm not for sure on that. So that's basically how I got into, you know, into guitars and shit, was basically through that music store. I always had an interest in guitars. You know, everyone, you know, when you're a kid and stuff like that, you're watching your favorite music video and you're playing air guitar, you know, watching MTV when MTV was actually music, not bullshit. And it was quite fun. I mean, I had a good time with those guys. I met a lot of cool people going in and out of that store. Seen a lot of shit as far as guitar repairs go. I always been interested in electronics as a kid, so I knew how to solder. I knew how to do, you know, troubleshoot for bad parts and stuff like that. So that wasn't that big of a deal. Kind of already knew, you know, that there's a pot inside, or potentiometer, capacitors. The difference between a capacitor for guitars and a capacitor that is for other electronics, for crossovers and shit like that. For car audio, always had interest in car audio. That's one thing I've always had interest in, was any form of audio, actually, home audio and vehicle audio. But back then, car audio was a little bit, well, actually a lot different than what it is now. And also back then, Pro Logic was the thing for surround sound, which, you know, really wasn't a true surround sound. All right, so I am strung up. Now I need to get this thing in tune, and play the balancing act over here with the tremolo. So I hope you enjoyed the little bit of history of, you know, basically how I got started in this thing, and that, you know, I kind of knew a little bit about this. Oh, and by the way, the first song that I was practicing that I never got to really finish practicing and actually playing fully through was Motley Crue's Home Sweet Home. That's the song that Woody was teaching me, and yeah, I never followed through with it. So let's get to this thing and start getting the balancing act going over here, because this is the time-consuming part that is a pain in the ass, is to get this thing leveled off with the strings and the springs in the back, so they're not pulling and pushing against each other. All right, be right back. Alright, so right now I am a little bit unhappy. I set up my camera to be recording, and it was not recording anything that I did. Hate using my cell phone for my camera, but right now it's the only thing I got. So what happened during the process of what I didn't record? Well, I ended up having to replace the bridge with the one that I got off of Reverb. Reason being is because the old bridge that came on this guitar was moving around a lot. Now here's the old bridge. And I don't know if you can see the wiggle in the mounts. This one is the same way. And these slide off very, very easily. I don't think they're supposed to. These are kind of pressed in. So what I did is I took the one that I bought off of Reverb, and I put it on here. Basically it's the same specs as far as string spacing and everything else goes. The only difference is the saddles have a rubber pad underneath them. On the mounting plate, and there is 2 tabs underneath the saddle that wedge up the back here a little bit, which I don't think is going to be any problem at all. Got somewhat of the setup pretty much done. I got my relief in the neck. I want to go back and check things, but after I started to set the guitar up and I came over here by the nut to adjust the relief, I noticed that the one string, the high E string, was really far off to the side. And the nut that was on there, which also had a plastic shim on the high side, this one is an R43. And I believe I put an R42 on here. I think that's what it says on the bottom. But the top over here, where the nut part of the strings run through, is a little bit on the low side. So right now I have like hardly any first fret action over here. And get a little bit of a buzz off of that first fret. So what I have over here is a BR3 nut that seems to have the same string spacing as this one does, but it's taller on the side over here. So I could shim this one up, which I've seen that done before, but I'm not too crazy about doing it, and call it good. But I'm going to try this nut and see where this one ends up before doing that. So yeah, I got the setup all done on there and kind of noticed a few things that I wasn't too happy about. So luckily I had the box that I got from Reverb, bought off the guy almost the same setup as far as what this is. This dropped in perfect, didn't have to do any modification or nothing, so it worked out fine. I did not hit the original tremolo bar, but I got the original nut for it, and this tremolo bar for the one that came with the guitar fits on there perfect and not really a problem. So that's where I stand right now, and hopefully when I do finish up this video, I'll be recording it this time. Damn camera.